It's time now for Countywide, a special presentation of Yavapai Broadcasting News. Join Paul David and Kyle Benedict as they talk with our community's leaders, newsmakers, and people in the know. You'll hear about the hot topics that affect all our lives in Yavapai County. And now here's today's Countywide.
Welcome to Countywide. I'm Kyle Benedict. Today we're talking hazardous materials, and here to talk about that is Joey Martin. He is Copper Canyon Fire and Medical Authority's HAZMAT program coordinator. So we got a lot of stuff to cover, a lot of great things. He's brought some props with us. We have a suit here and a lot of good things we're going to be talking about. But first off, Joey, thanks for making the trip in here today.
You're welcome. And
first off, can you just kind of give us a general overview of your HAZMAT program and how many members you have and what it is that you guys do exactly?
At Copper Canyon Fire and Medical Authority, we have one of the only hazardous materials technician teams on this side of the mountain, central or Yavapai, or over in the Prescott Valley area. They also have a hazardous materials team. We do an all hazards response, including dangerous chemical releases, anything that's considered dangerous or hazardous to the life and the environment. We do also heavy rescue, trench rescue, type rescue, confined space rescue, that all kind of plays into the hazardous materials organization.
Okay, and how many members do you have within that program?
Well, the technician level, we have 28 technician level hazardous materials technicians. And then to accompany all that, we have rope rescue techs, we have confined space rescue techs, we have trench rescue techs, so it all kind of plays in together.
And that's special operations almost unit, okay.
Exactly.
And now are all of the, I guess, HAZMAT members, are they all members of the Copper Canyon Fire and Medical Authority, or are they just from other agencies around here?
Yeah, all of our, we do have, all of our team members are members of Copper Canyon Fire and Medical Authority. We do have some what we call ancillary or auxiliary members that have been through the technician program from Clarkdale, Verde Valley, Cottonwood, that have been through the class, that if we come to their scenes, or because we do mutual aid agreements with all of the districts and responding units in the Verde Valley, that know what we're doing, what we're about, and how to assist and help.
Okay, so if there's any hazardous materials incident within the Verde Valley, it's your group that's going to be there.
Yes.
Respond to that. Okay.
Yes.
Now, in terms of training, I imagine there's a lot of special training that goes on with this. Can kind of take us through that, the basics, just when you first start off with training. I mean, are just your standard firefighter, EMT firefighter, do they have any training in HAZMAT?
Yeah, one of the first things that we require, and I believe most departments or districts now require, to even test to become a firefighter EMT with your district, you have to have a basic hazardous materials operations level, which is taken through, I believe they offer it through Yavapai Community College. And then from there, once you're hired, established with our district or that department, a couple times or about every other year, our union organization, the IAFF, offers a hazardous materials technician class, which is right around 640 hours, I believe, of pretty intense technical education. That's the best way to put it. There's a lot of classroom didactic time. There is suit time, what we call suit time. There's a chemistry block where we actually learn how to break down those chemicals and figure out those reactions prior to getting into, an operations incident. And then on top of the initial training, we do monthly trainings, we do quarterly trainings, we do yearly trainings, just to keep us in the aspect, making sure that we're.
I imagine that's kind of, the training is extremely crucial. I mean, just the constant training, because I mean, how many hazardous materials calls are you responding to? It's not, I mean, in terms of what we get in the news department, we don't really hear too much about those type of incidents happening that often. So I imagine that the constant training is huge.
Over the years, the hazardous materials calls have waned a little bit.
Okay.
I mean, I think we've kind of melded them into different things. But as far as, this is considered one of those high risk, low acuity type calls. So yeah, we need to, as far as the training aspect goes, it's one of those things that we really have to keep up on. Because if you don't use it, you lose it.
Right. Yeah. So kind of moving along those lines, what are some of the incidents that you're trained to respond to?
With us being an all hazards incidents response team, we start. I mean, it can be the gamut of things. We can. Our most common call in the Verde Valley are propane type leaks. I know people don't think that that's necessarily hazardous material because it's there and everybody has it. But hazardous or propane leaks to gas spills, gasoline spills, all the way up to chlorine type incidences. It can run we have radiological meters, so any kind of radiological transport incidents that could happen along the I-17, I-40 corridor. We're trained all the way up to, even though we don't have rail lines here in the Verde Valley, we're trained to deal with railroad type incidences where, if need be, we can go up towards Flagstaff along the I-40 corridor and assist in those instances. We deal with, like I said, with spills, releases, anything that the one thing we don't do is clean up. That's the only thing. We just mitigate. Once we stop the hazard, dam, dike, whatever we need to do to keep it from damaging the environment and people anymore, and then it's usually turned over to a licensed contractor to clean it up.
Gotcha. So when you're responding to one of these calls and you get on scene, take us through kind of the thought process real quick before we take our first break of when you get on scene, what happens then? I mean, are you guys just running immediately in there, or what happens?
No, that's with a hazardous materials response. One of the first things we start on our initial dispatch, they try to give us as much information as possible. Once we arrive on scene, this HAZMAT is one of the few, or hazardous materials is one of the few incidences in a fire department setting that you will actually see the guys stand back, step back, and take a big, broad spectrum picture of it. And then they'll start setting a plan, working through a motion. If there's an immediate, like you said, people down or things, or where it looks like an immediate rescue can be made, we will attempt a rescue as long as we're in full SCBAs, turnouts, that kind of thing, where we can snatch and grab and pull them out of there. And then from there, we'll start working on setting up hot zones, warm zone, cold zones, things like that. Where we can start evacuation procedures if we need to. We can start setting up decontamination procedures if we need to. We basically lay out a plan before the operation begins. And then once the operation begins, then we're continually evaluating, making sure that our process is working. If it's not working, then we'll move on and implement another plan, or plan B, plan C, that kind of thing.
Yeah, safety, I mean, is the number one thing. You guys are responding because there's some type of chemical or release or material that is not good, so you want to kind of step back, and last thing we need is the hazardous materials guys going down and then nobody's safe.
Right.
So we're going to take our first break. When we come back, we'll talk about some of the specialty equipment that comes along with that they use, and also talk about some of those zones that Joey was mentioning. Joey Martin, he's the HAZMAT program coordinator with Copper Canyon Fire and Medical Authority. This is Countywide. We'll be back in a couple minutes.
and my boy Matt had it good. He had catnip that was off the hook. But one day, he brings a girl home, and she's allergic to cats. Every sneeze was a nail in my coffin. Now I'm in a shelter. It's decent, but they don't even have Wi-Fi.
I'm Jenny Garth, and as a mother of 3, I know kids worry about a lot of things. Getting enough food to eat shouldn't be one of them. But here in America, that is a real worry for 1 in 5 children. Even though we are one of the most food-rich countries in the world, 15 million children don't know where their next meal is coming from. This is unacceptable, and something the Feeding America nationwide network of food banks is working to solve. Instead of accepting that our country lets billions of pounds of surplus food go to waste every year, Feeding America has made it their mission to help families in need by rescuing this food. Through food pantries and meal programs, the nationwide network of food banks provides more than 3 billion meals, serving virtually every community in the United States, including yours. Join me in supporting Feeding America and your local food bank by visiting feedingamerica.org. Together, we can solve hunger. Together, we're Feeding America.
Welcome back to Countywide. I'm Kyle Benedict, sitting down with Joey Martin. He is the HAZMAT Program Coordinator for Copper Canyon Fire and Medical Authority. He was talking about just kind of giving us an overview of the program, the type of incidents that they respond to. And he mentioned while he was talking about responding and what they do once they get on scene, how they kind of sit back and just assess everything first to make sure they have the proper plan of attack to mitigate the situation. But he mentioned zones, and can you kind of touch on the different zones that you set up once you establish your plan? Can you go into a little bit more detail with those?
Yeah, the zones that we set up, they're kind of circumferential, if you want to call it that. We have hot zones, warm zones, and cold zones. The hot zones are what we call the action area. That's where there's probably chemical on the ground. There's that's where we use our air monitors to, see where the edge of the hot zone is, if you will, where it's the immediate danger to life and health area. And then we have the warm zones, which is called what we consider the prep area. It's still considered a danger area, but it's not considered as dangerous as the hot zone. And then you have the cold zone, where we have our incident command post, staging areas, stuff like that. Usually in the corridor, the warm zone, we set up our decon area, so anybody going in and out of the hot zone goes through that area, or that comes out the decon area, goes in, so it's a controlled way to come in and out of the area. We can build things around it to designate it. It's more, when we set those zones up, the hot, warm, and cold zones, it's to give us, time distance away from it to have enough area to work. And if there's sometimes they expand, there's sometimes they get smaller, depending on the chemical, depending on the hazard.
And like you were saying before break, you guys are constantly throughout the call reevaluating how everything is playing out.
Right. We have safety officers that are part of the incident management team that are constantly monitoring things that are going on, personnel, equipment, things like that. And then you have the different sectors that are like logistics, that are providing equipment that we need. Then you have the operations that are actually going in and taking care of the problem, mitigating the problem.
Okay. Let's move on to some of the equipment, and let's start off behind us. Joey brought in a suit, and so we got it hanging up in the studio here. This is a very intense looking suit. What can you tell me about this thing? This
is a 1990, it's an NFPA 1991 A-level fully encapsulated protective garment. Once somebody is in this, they essentially have their own environment. It's not chemical It's chemical resistive, meaning that chemicals will penetrate through it, but it takes it a longer amount of time to get through it. The person inside wears a fully self-contained breathing apparatus, or an SCBA, hard hat, air mask. As you can see on the wrist, the gloves are melded into the suit or welded into the suit. The same way with the feet. Knees are reinforced so the guys can get down on their knees and work, and they don't have to worry about penetrating the suit. Essentially, it's like I said, it's your own environment. You can, you're in there, the chemicals can get on it, and it takes a long time. I mean, most chemicals won't go through these that we deal with around here. Chlorine is probably one of the most common in the Verde Valley that we would use it for. And then the levels go down from there. There's a B-level suit, which isn't as an intensive as this one. Still creates a barrier, but not as an intensive barrier. And then we have C-level garments, which are, have you ever seen the guys wearing the white Tyvek type suits around?
Yeah.
That's
okay.
And then we have our D-levels, which are our structural protection gear.
Okay, so the whole goal and purpose is just to basically isolate the individual
Yeah,
from
exactly.
whatever environment that they're in.
Exactly.
Okay, what about this here on the table? This is a air monitor you mentioned?
Yeah, this here is a air monitor. It is this one is a 4-gas air monitor, which reads hydrogen sulfide gas, carbon monoxide, oxygen, and it has what's called a combustible sensor in it. So anything that produces a combustible vapor, it will read it and tell us about what it is. Hydrogen sulfide is one of those chemicals that's very common in sewer gases and things like that. It's that rotten egg smell that we get.
Okay.
People don't realize that hydrogen sulfide can be very dangerous. The thing about it is that our bodies quit smelling it at about 10 parts per million. That's about where this one starts reading it. It starts reading it at 0 or 1, but at 10 parts per million, we can no longer smell it. So this will continue to read it. Oxygen, there's chemicals that we have out there that will displace oxygen in a room or in a hole or whatever. Like with our confined space that I was telling you about, we use this before ever entering a hole or anything like that. It's dropped down into to measure the oxygen levels and any other type of chemicals that might be in the hole before we enter the hole.
Okay.
And then carbon monoxide is very common around here in the wintertime especially.
Yeah, and that's something I was just going to say. We've done a couple news stories recently on that, just about the importance of either having a detector or just making sure your heating appliances are in proper working order.
Exactly,
So is this an air monitor like this one of the more valuable pieces of equipment that you have?
Absolutely. This is probably, out of all of our weapons in the toolbox, if you want to call it, or tools in the toolbox, this is probably our most used. There's things that we do prior if we're going into like an unknown smell or an unknown chemical smell. We'll go in and, because the sensors on these are very sensitive. If you get into an area where, I don't know, like a sulfuric acid type thing that will just completely kill this. So it's what we'll do is we'll go in with pH paper and kind of, you wet it and wave it around, and if we have any change on the pH paper, this doesn't get used at all. So we do have little safety precautions stuff to keep our equipment safe.
Okay, tricks of the trade.
Exactly. If our equipment isn't safe, we can't be safe either. So.
Okay. Perfect, great. Well, thanks for bringing that stuff in.
You're welcome.
We're going to take our second break, sitting down with Joey Martin, Copper Canyon Fire and Medical Authority HAZMAT Program Coordinator. Good phone number real quick, 928-567-9401. That'll take you to Copper Canyon Fire's, just their main number there for any questions regarding anything that you may have. So this is Countywide. We're going to take a quick break. We'll be back in a couple minutes.
It takes less than 1 minute to find out if you may have prediabetes. You can do it here. But you probably won't. You're busy. Kids, work, show coming back in 48 seconds. So let's do this now. Hold up one finger if you're a man, Women, 0. 3 more fingers if you're over 60, 2 over 50, 1 over 40. If you're not sure, keep in mind you're sitting on a couch right now, so 1 more finger if you're not very active. 1 finger if yes, 0 if no. 1 yes, 0 no. Next, find the body type that looks most like you and hold up that many fingers while I look around awkwardly. And that's it. If you're holding up 5 fingers or more, you probably have prediabetes. Sorry to be so blunt, but hey, you're busy. Just go to the site.
This is the story of a boy who is very sensitive to lights and sounds. So he built secret hiding places where nothing could get in. The boy didn't like looking people in the eye. It made him feel uncomfortable. One day, he found out he had something called autism. His family got him help. And slowly, he learned how to live with it better.
Early intervention can make a lifetime of difference. Learn the signs at autismspeaks.org.
If you don't fix them, sparks from dragging tow chains could cause a wildfire, and that could be scary.
Hi, Smokey.
Only you can prevent wildfires.
Welcome back to Countywide. I'm Kyle Benedict, sitting down with Joey Martin, the HAZMAT Program Coordinator for Copper Canyon Fire and Medical Authority. Again, the phone number I gave it to you before break, but I'll give it to you once again, 928-567-9401. And then you can also visit their website, CCFMA.org, for just any questions or information that you need. So we were talking about equipment. We've talked about some of the common incidents that you respond to. Mm-hmm. In terms of just your average citizen, what are some of the must-knows just regarding hazardous materials? What are some of the more common things that we might come across that we should avoid, or we should call you if something spills, or what are just some of those common things to be aware of?
Well, like we talked about earlier, the one of the most common things that we get in the Verde Valley are propane leaks. If I think everybody knows pretty much what a propane leak smells like. If you detect it at all or anything like that, that's one of those that it's an immediate 911 call. Mm-hmm. Just because of its potential. The other things that some of the there's some common household chemicals that should not be put together. Bleach and ammonia is another one. For some reason, we haven't had that in a while, but for some reason people like to mix those, and those put off a pretty nasty gas. The biggest thing that I would like to get across is if you run across anything that you feel is, detrimental to yourself or the environment or anything like that, 911 is always the first and foremost go-to. Never hesitate. I mean, we would rather come out and look at it, take a look at it, test it, do whatever we need to do to ensure that it is safe, rather than have it out there to where it could potentially hurt, hundreds mm-hmm. or thousands.
Right. Yeah, definitely. I mean, if you have any question, just call. And I think just to kind of wrap up the show, we mentioned it and we were talking about it in the news and everyone's talking about it, but CO detectors. Mm-hmm. I think carbon monoxide, just making sure that you were taking all the necessary steps to make sure you do not have any issue with carbon monoxide in your home, especially as Joey mentioned, during the winter months. That seems to be, I think, when people are using those appliances that really put off carbon monoxide. So, well, Joey, I think we're out of time, but I want to thank you for coming in and bringing in a couple equipment with us, and
you're welcome.
Just talking about the hazardous materials program over there at Copper Canyon Fire and Medical Authority. Again, a phone number 928-567-9401. That's going to do it for today's Countywide. We'll see you next time.